Last week I did show you how the remote armor repair implants work, and I also show you how the remote shield repair implants work as well. But I wasn't able to show the exact numbers
Autopilot
because
disabled.
the modules were bugged and I wasn't able to turn the module on. So today we will take a look at the actual stats with the remote armor repair implants, and of course I will show you the combat stats with the drone bombs on the Nestor. Now, the Nestor is a very unique ship, the Space Blender, because of its very unique shape and because of the rotating parts that the Nestor has. Now, the Nestor remains the only logistic battleship, and it's actually a multi-purpose battleship. You can use it for exploration, for PvP, and for armor repair. Now the stats on this ship remain the same. I always check the trait description just in case there were some ninja changes that sometimes happen to the stats, so just checking to see if everything is still the same, and by the looks of it, everything is still the same. Now, I haven't really seen a exploration Nestor yet, although I think when wormholes are released, the Nestor will be very popular, because the Nestor's very low mass can actually allow it to pass through some wormholes that other battleships cannot go through. The modules and rigs are still the same. Cargo hold is also very nice and still the same. Armor tank on the Nestor, don't shield tank your Nestor. Shield tank Nestors are cursed, just like a shield tank Astero or shield tank Stratius. They are armor tank ships. The rest of the stats look the same. You know, I actually thought that the Praxis 2 was the slowest ship. Well, this is the second lowest base velocity, although the Nestor's very low mass allows it to reach some incredible speeds with the micro-observe. On paper you can get to 3.2 or 3.5 kilometers per second with the right build and with the right nanocore. So the Nestor is definitely a very unique and interesting little ship. Now, this is the remote armor repair build for a fleet, and here you can take a look at the stats of the remote armor repairs. 335,000 hit points, cold, very nice base resistances. Rigs are for P60 combat integration modules, all are for full resistance, and of course for full tank. And well, in the low slots, triple adaptives, one reactive and one damage control, as well as one afterburner. Now let me quickly go and enable the remote armor implant. Now I did say that you could increase your own resistance with the remote armor repairs, and it will be time to actually test that theory out, because if that ends up being true, then I will have around 98% average resistance on this ship. And that would make the Nestor fleet immortal. Just imagine 10 of these battleships all remotely repairing each other, all have the implant. Doesn't have to be maxed out, level 15 or level 30 is actually more than enough. With the right general units and with the right stats and secondaries on the implant, you should get 98% resistance across the board for all of the 10 Nestor battleships that are, of course, in the fleet. So, let me double check everything. Okay, everything is set and ready. You can actually go and change the medium slot modules for more capacitor and group armor repair. I will show that later on. Okay, the triple adaptives as well as the reactive is enabled. Let's launch the drones and let's take a look at the resistances. That's a lot of hit points, 633,000 hit points, 90, 90, 90 and 86%. This is with everything active, minus the damage control. The damage control can be very useful. against barrage implant and things like that. Okay, well, now the question, can I increase my own resistance by repairing other ships and structures? And of course, drones. Let's find out. Okay, let's slap one repair on this drone, second repair on this drone, third on this, and the last one on this drone. And now the drones are receiving armor repair. And by the looks of it, it did not increase the armor resistance by repairing the drone. Okay, that's actually good news. That's actually good news. And let's turn on the first stat of the implant, 800,000 hit points. Well, yes, that did increase the resistances, like a small damage control. And the second one is activated as well. Now this will increase the armor repair, but it will drastically increase the capacitor usage. And with the damage control, the hit points are 2.3 million, 97% and 96% on explosive. Yeah, this is very tanky. This is very tanky. In a fleet, this is going to be busted.
Warning, capacitor
And I love
running
it.
low.
2.3 million. This is carrier level of hit points. Or dreadnought, depends on your skill level. And as you can see, my capacitor went really low. Now unfortunately, you don't really see the stat number that you get, the 500% increase in armor repair. You don't see that when you click on the armor repair for some reason, on the remote armor repair. So that's one thing that unfortunately doesn't show up, but it would repair a battleship in a couple of
Docking
seconds.
request
It will also
accepted.
increase the capacitor use, but if you are in a fleet, then you will also have a really solid capacitor. And for the capacitor, you can slap capacitor batteries that will help at maintaining a very solid capacitor level. Now this is a combat build with dual armor repairs on the Nestor. It still has very nice resistance on the armor. A little hole on the explosive, but that's not really a big problem. And now I will go and swap the implants into drone bombs. Now the Nestor can technically use the missile implants, but it's mainly a drone ship, so the correct implant would be the bombard implant for the Nestor. And you can tweak out the units according to your liking, depends on the build you run, depends on how you want to fly the ship. In my case, I go for full DPS or full tank, or a mix between tank and DPS. And of course, I like to throw in some afterburner stats, armor repair stats, in some cases damage control stats, things like that. It really depends on what you really want to do with the ship. Okay, now still it doesn't really show the drone effect from the drone bombs on the drones when you activate the implant, but it should be really nice even for medium drones. Okay, now let's take a look at the active stats with a fit like this. 528,000 hit points, that's still really high, that's still really good. And really solid. With the damage control, it should be 1.5 million, 95, 95, 96, 96 and 94%, which is still very nicely balanced out. And I actually really like the Nestor for its tank. It's ridiculously tanky and fast, and still has some really solid DPS. You can also use the cruise missiles on this ship, and you can actually use the torpedo launchers, but I'm not really sure if this is a good idea, because the Nestor is a very expensive ship and you really don't want to have any potential tackle ship nearby. Now, for a fleet build, you can sacrifice the Nosferatus for group capacitor transmitters, group capacitor boosters, and capacitor batteries combined with that multiply that by 10 Nestor ships that are in your fleet. Should make your capacitor really stable, and you also maintain a really solid capacitor level. Can also be used with a build like this, maximum resistance. This is not a solo build, this is a build that is made to be used in a Nestor fleet, a specialized Nestor fleet that is holding together and they are armor repairing each other. Although I still think that the remote armor repair will increase the armor resistance of the target that you're repairing. So in the end, it doesn't increase your own resistance, but it will increase the fleet's resistance. And if you have a lot of Nestor ships in the fleet, you will have 98% resistance in the end. So yeah, this is a very interesting idea. It's expensive, I know, it's ridiculously expensive, but it would be practically immortal, nothing subcapital. Even capital ships would have a problem with this, because you really would not be doing a lot of damage to that fleet, and that is, when you think about it, that is a little bit scary. Okay, now let me quickly take a look at this current build. Yeah, it's still the same. 90% and 86% on explosive. This build is also a build that I really like, because the Nestor also has the bonus on the group armor repair. This ship is a very unique ship. I actually wanted so hard, I wanted so bad to fly it, but unfortunately a lot of things have happened, so I changed my plans a little bit. 1.8 million with the damage control, 70,000 hit points on the armor. This thing is tanky. This thing is a really tanky battleship. Would be ridiculous if you were able to increase your own resistance by repairing your drones. Would change a lot of builds. Would really change a lot of the builds. Perhaps it will work on the armor. Not on the armor, but on the shield. And I will test that out with the force auxiliary structures when I actually get to fly one. Very soon, hopefully very soon. I'm just waiting on some things to line up. Well then, how does the Nestor work with the drone bomb implant? Now, the drone bomb implant, just like the barrage implant, are both very similar, and at the same time also quite different. Now, both have very high burst damage, although I would say the drone bomb implant has much higher alpha, while the barrage is just insane burst damage until it lasts. Both combined with the appropriate damage mod is going to be very deadly. Now, the drone bomb implant is really good if you are a battleship that uses drones, because you can deal with tackle ships very quickly, and it can allow you to escape a lot of pirates in nullsec, in lowsec. So, in that perspective, the drone bombs have a big advantage over the barrage implant. The barrage implant is good if you are a hunter, and if you have a Macarial, you just drop at 0 from your target and unload the barrage on the target. They will not live long. That's already proven on the last like 8 or 9 Macarial videos that I've done. A Macarial nowadays is pretty scary in this game. Although the run bombs are also pretty scary if you are a Stratios that tries to tackle a Dominix or a Nestor, or ships like that. Although when you go to tackle a Nestor, you most likely have 5 other ships waiting behind you, because everyone wants a piece of a Nestor, trust me. I know when we find a very rare ship like a Nestor or Barghest, everyone wakes up for the kill. Like, everyone drops what they're doing, they log in and they want to participate because everyone wants a piece of a rare expensive ship, and that's okay. So if you're on a fleet and if you are aiming for an Nestor, it means most likely you have backup waiting, so you could technically survive. The Stratios can be built to withstand a lot of damage, even drone bombs, and for that you need to have a damage control, large armor repair and a full tank build. Basically very similar to the Stratios build that I have on my own Stratios that is built for tackling. And it's pretty tanky. It can survive a lot of deadly implants. I built the ship like that. Now, as for the orbit that you should use on the Nestor, I usually orbit with the cruise missiles. I orbit at the optimal drone range, which is at about 85 kilometers. Although sometimes the ship feels like it has a lot of inertia and it doesn't rotate that quickly. I know it has so many rotating parts, but it doesn't turn on itself that quickly, and it is a little bit funny. Also, one problem that you might encounter if your Nestor is moving at the speed of light is the fact that sometimes the drones will not return to the drone bay that quickly, and that might be a little bit annoying sometimes. Not really sure why it happens, but it's just how the drones work. Although surprisingly, the Nestor is actually better than the Rattlesnake in terms of its usability. On the Rattlesnake you can't really use anything else besides sentry drones or large drones because the Rattlesnake doesn't have any bonuses on medium or small drones, and that makes the Rattlesnake very vulnerable to tackle ships. Basically, if your ship is moving at, let's say, 3.2, 3.5 kilometers per second, you could easily avoid the large drones from the Rattlesnake. So if that happens, well, that Rattlesnake is definitely not going to be having a very good day. Now, the Nestor, on the other hand, besides having a lot of bonuses on all drones, it also has the speed and tank, which is very interesting. I remember the days when armor tank was considered to be bad. I was still using an armor tank back then, but now the armor tanks have actually become one of the better choices for PvP, especially if you are focused on a capacitor related build. If you are using neutralizers, it's easier to use them with a armor tank than a shield tank, especially after we consider the fact that armor repairs use way less capacitor. They also repair a lot, but they have longer cycle times. While the shield boosters are good for short fights. Or well, in my case, with the Macariel, I have no tank, just one damage control, and sometimes one adaptive shield harder. Or I do have a tank, but that means that I'm going after a specific target, like the Apocalypse Striker or other ships that have 1 or 2 damage types. Now I have the micro warp drive installed on this ship and I'm moving at 2 kilometers per second. Now this build is not really built to be fast, it's more built to have a very good capacitor and to be multi-purpose basically. However, if you fly the Nestor and if you want maximum possible speed, auxiliary thrusters, the tier 3 or tier 4 rigs both are fine, but the tier 4 rigs cost a lot, so if you want to save on ISK, go with the tier 3 rigs, but at the same time, if you have a lot of ISK and if you want the best stats for your ship, then you go with the tier 4 rigs. I know Mama Kariel has tier 4 rigs, full tier 4 rigs, and so far that thing's been working really well, so can't go wrong with either option. Depends on how much ISK you have in your wallet. However, I wouldn't recommend that you use the micro updrive if you plan to use the rapid missiles or torpedo launchers on the Nestor, because of the big signature radius and because you can easily get scrambled at that range if the tackle ship somehow slips under the radar. You will lose speed, and that can be a little bit risky. So for a long range, micro updrive, for rapid missiles and torpedo launchers, afterburner. Or perhaps if you really want long range, then a micro updrive. The missiles can be adjusted to have a 150 km range. The drone control range can also be adjusted to have the same distance, same range, 150 kilometers, like the large missiles, and then you can easily and safely manually orbit around your encounter or storyline mission at 130-40 kilometers, and that will be very difficult to catch for any hunter that is lurking around in low sec or in null sec. So the Nestor definitely one of those ships that is difficult to catch, but at the same time, one mistake is all it takes for a ship to go down. So in the end, you have to be really careful with super expensive ships like the Nestor. Now, I haven't personally seen a lot of these ships in low sec. I did participate in shooting down one of them. That was 25 billion, that was expensive. But besides that, I only had one more encounter with a Nestor when I was flying the Ortrus as my main PvP ship, and I wasn't able to catch that thing very easily. I had to warp out because, well, I lost shield and I was already taking some good armor damage, because these things are fast. And I'm always happy when I encounter a player that knows what they're doing, because that just shows that skill is what matters the most in this game. Well, I got spawned inside of the structure and I hit 3.5 kilometers per second.
We're under attack.
Well, that was actually very interesting. I jumped to full speed in a second. That was very
We're under
unexpectedly useful. Did turn on the micro drive just as the ship is going at full micro drive speed. This is equaling to you matching the revs on your car when you are downshifting. Actually, I haven't expected this to happen with a ship, but it happened because I collided with the structure. This map has a big bug on the station there. You can easily get stuck, so stay away from that structure, or else you risk losing your ship. It's very difficult to get out of the structure once you are stuck inside. Now, remember when I said that it's not a good idea to use a micro drive when you are using rapid missiles or torpedoes? Well, I did not listen to my own rules, and when that happens I usually lose a ship. So hopefully I'm not going to blow up this Nestor here, but I'm focusing on the ships that might carry a scrambler, and I'm orbiting at a very high velocity, so still don't do this with your own Nestor, it's not going to end well. Don't repeat my mistakes here. I should have swapped to a afterburner before coming back to this mission. Now with the afterburner, the Nestor is still fast, but you really get most of the Nestor speed with the micro warp drive because of its very low mass. The low mass is basically the one of the main things about this little ship. And you might be wondering, how did they manage to construct a ship so big? This thing is 1.6, 1.7 kilometers long, and it weighs less than a battle cruiser. How the hell does that happen? And it still has a lot of armor, and it still has a lot of resistances, so some very interesting voodoo has been put into construction of this ship, and I love it. You know, actually, I might actually go and start flying this thing into PvP. Although, I'm not really sure if that's, you know, going to be a good idea. I already have the Macarial for that purpose. However, I kinda miss flying unique looking ships, and if someone would offer me to fly the Barghest or the Nestor, which one would I pick? And that's, I can tell you right away, that's a very tough choice, because I love both ships. Both ships are actually very fun, and both are good in their own way. But which one would actually be the better choice in my case? That's something that I don't know yet. I would buy both, and I would fly both if I had the chance to. I really would, but I still believe that the karma of me blowing up 2 space pans will get me. It will get me one day. So I have the theory that the second I start flying this thing, or I start flying the Nestor, bad luck will cause me to lose the ship. Something basically on the lines of me losing the internet connection, warping to a gate gun, or something like that will happen. I can almost bet on that, because that's just what happens sometimes. And main number cause of death for me in this game was bad internet. I remember when my Cinnabal randomly just warped to a gate gun and it got just slapped. That was hilarious. And you might wonder, why did you warp to the gate with a criminal timer? Well, I didn't. The ship warped on its own when I lost connection. So things like that are the things that worry me flying these expensive things. Although my Macarial became really expensive nowadays with tier 4 rigs, it's valued at 9.8 billion, so yeah, I already have a expensive little boat that I risk every day. But it's fun flying the Macarial. I'm surprised how fun that thing became. And to think that Macarial is still my oldest ship that I still use. I actually sold the Yashimu a while ago, the old one, and the Yashimu was, I thought it was the oldest, but when I got them for the first time, I figured out that the Macarial is actually the oldest ship that I have, because I actually bought the Ashimu a week or two after I got the Macarial. Because it took me a while to skill for the Macarial back when it was released. At the time the Macarial was like 20 billion. And I didn't have the best skills, but I got offered to fly one, so I did put the skills for the Macarial back then. Did skill out of the cannons when I was flying the Balgorn and when I was flying the other ships. But recently I went all back in the cannons, and I can tell you I'm not moving away from cannons. I don't think I will, because that ship made me so happy lately. I really like the Macarial. It's such a very loyal ship. 3 years I have it. I have the thing for 3 years, and it did not disappoint a single time. Such a good ship, and it does deserve the rigs, and I will go and get A types for it. I have decided to do that because the ship deserves them. The good old Macarial does deserve A types. The cannons and the gyro stabilizers will be full A type, and that will be expensive, yes, but the ship does deserve them. That ship does. The Macarial did a lot. It did a better job than the Balgorn actually. With the Balgorn you have problems to hold the target because the Balgorn is slow, doesn't have a lot of points by default because you mostly run one Scrammer or one Disruptor, but the Macarial has 3 or 4 Scrammers, nothing can run away from that, so just drop the Macarial, unload the barrage implant, unload the gyro stabilizers, and warp out. And cloak, that works really well. Black Ops Macarial, the first of its kind in the game. Not the first Black Ops, but probably the first functioning one. You probably remember the Rattlesnake with a cloaking device that we have seen. Yeah, that was a cursed build, but I got inspired by that to actually try it out, and I made it work. I still call my build cursed because of the clocking device, but I'm not complaining about its performance. It actually runs really well, and I'm actually quite happy with it. And I can tell you that I'm also quite happy with this Nestor.
Enemy ships detected.
You know, I'm actually
Warp drive active.
impressed by how good this thing can be. If it just only were a little bit less expensive, and if it were just a little bit of a, you know, if it weren't a hard attack to fly, I would probably be flying the Nestor right now. And I still have plans to fly this thing. I will probably fly it. So with that being said, hope that you enjoyed this little run with the Nestor. Hope that the builds that you see here can be helpful towards the way how you fit your ship, and hope that you have fun flying this monster of a ship. So with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I will see you next time.